that this new company that acquires Novell's assets, it doesn't have any history, as far as I know, dealing with open source or free software or anything like that. And Jason from the source website, a very good website, he did some research around it. He was actually looking very hard for evidence of them working with open source, and there is none. So this confirms what I wrote yesterday before I saw Jason's analysis, which I basically say OpenSUSE should try and fork very quickly, because this company will not be interested in anything which doesn't generate profit. It doesn't have to prove that it's friends with open source if it doesn't make money from the project. It's not going to support the project. The second thing is, very quickly, I was one of those SUSE users for a long time before the deal with Microsoft, and I carried on using it for a while until I actually had a reason to install something else. Now, the thing is, as far as I could tell at the time, it was a very close competition between Ubuntu and SUSE for number one distribution. If you looked at DistroWatch, or if you looked at the merits of the distribution, SUSE was in a very good position to take the lead with KDE, and they basically threw it away, but they didn't actually throw it away. It's Novell which did something terrible, and that's why people got very upset. And those who basically stayed will say, well, it was never a big deal, but the people who had an issue with that are no longer part of the same group. They're no longer with SUSE. Now, the last thing I want to say is I received an email this morning from Pascal, who's one of the prominent people and also a board member of the OpenSUSE project, and he's trying to quiet people down a bit and trying to give the new company the benefit of the doubt, but it does seem as though the project is going to suffer, having actually lost quite a few people recently.
I mean, what I would add, just in the interests of fairness, obviously we can't predict the future with any great accuracy, but Jeff Horn, who is the CEO of AttachMate, has said, and I'll quote him directly, the OpenSUSE project is an important part of the SUSE business. As noted in the agreement announced today, AttachMate plans to operate SUSE as a standalone business unit after the transaction closes. If this transaction closes, then after closing, AttachMate Corporation anticipates no change to the relationship between SUSE business and the OpenSUSE project as a result of this transaction. So that, in the interest of fairness, is his words. I'll make my point about my perceived harm that the Microsoft relationship did. Like Roy mentions about DistroWatch and the popularity of Ubuntu v OpenSUSE. From all the reports I receive about people that use OpenSUSE and people who have looked at it, they all say it's a really great distribution. Everybody's got praise for it, but it never seems to get up to the level that Ubuntu has. And I think the relationship that was perceived, or the relationship that was seen with Microsoft, was damaging to SUSE itself, and I think that's probably what kept it back, like I think Roy touched on, Gordon mentioned before. And I think it's a shame, because there was a lot of people who championed OpenSUSE. I used it for about a year and I thought it was a great distro, but Ubuntu came along and there was a lot of rumblings about OpenSUSE, so I went with Ubuntu and then switched from Ubuntu a couple of years after that. I don't know if you got... Sorry
Novell seemed to do, from the outside, Novell seemed to do two things wrong when it came to OpenSUSE when they bought it. One was they switched over the toolkit. So it wasn't OpenSUSE a heavy KDE thing and they changed it to GNOME, or was it vice versa? They went completely in the face against what the whole distribution was about by switching the toolkit. And then they went and did the patent deal with Microsoft, which basically made them a pariah. And people, as you said, Tim, people have got a lot of praise for OpenSUSE and they like the distribution, but it was the whole, that's been blessed by Microsoft. I'm not touching it. It's sort of boycotting it because it's been blessed by Microsoft.
I don't think it was unfair to say it was tainted. I used that word quite a few times, and I think it was a big shame because it was tainted by Microsoft. So I'm not going to say intentionally because I can't say that for sure, but it certainly was tainted. And I know we shouldn't look at statistics, and I'm probably the first to argue about the validity of statistics. But DistroWatch, I think, is a very good indicator of what people are interested in the Linux world, and to see it sort of teeter around the sort of mediocrity in comparison to the other big name distros, I think was a shame, because the press they received when people did take a look at it wasn't was very good. So it is a shame, and I think it's the whole Novell thing is very sad. And maybe that's where Canonical should be praised, because it took up the baton and ran with it, and obviously they have their successes now, and they're going from strength to strength.
You have to remember, they have to compete on a zero-cost basis, because as far as I know, all the top distributions will be free, as in no charge. And the other thing is, if Novell is going to compete based on the same packages that all the other distributions have, the branding or the distribution's reputation is what's going to count. Lots of people choose Ubuntu because they think that's the easiest thing to get to work with. That's the most friendly thing, and that's what drives people to downloading Ubuntu, and probably won't be downloading something like Mint because they don't really know what the distribution is about. They don't really know it exists. Now, the other thing I wanted to say before is, if you remember, Linspire and Xandros used to have pretty decent positions in DistroWatch, but we're talking about 4 or 5 years ago. And Linspire was also cheating on Distro. They were actually trying to use a trick to drive up the numbers for Linspire and DistroWatch. But if you remember, back in 2008, around April, Xandros bought Linspire. And what they said at first was that they would, be serious about distributions. And I think a while later they say that the FreeSpire will not be, Linspire probably won't be publicly available, and FreeSpire will continue to leave. But they never released even one thing of this type. They never actually made a release of the Xandros itself. I think 6.0 was the last one they had. So basically all these promises will be serious, and don't worry, the existing customers will carry on, will take care of you. That's just the type of thing you say when people sign a deal, and that's what people remember. And if a few months go by and you don't do anything with the distribution, nobody really thinks about it, and nobody makes a big fuss about it. So I'm not sure that this promise of taking things seriously is a reassurance or a legal obligation to do something. One last example is the Oracle thing with MySQL. In order to buy Sun, they had to prove to the European Commission that they will take care of MySQL. And what actually happened was, first they changed the pricing of the MySQL project, and also they don't have any, they're not committed to delivering the same value as they could have. So lots of people seem to be kind of disappointed to see that Oracle is just basically doing the very minimum they have to in order to comply with what they promised in order to buy Sun. And this is what might happen in this case, with OpenSUSE and SUSE. But you have to remember, the last point I'll make is, Novell claims to have made money from the customers of SLED and Slessen, and all these distributions which were packaged to be binaries. And this is how this company can still extract some cash and also make money for Microsoft, because when you buy the SUSE server, Microsoft takes a certain amount of that for so-called patents, or as Microsoft reps call it, they call it royalty payments, and that's a quote. What they call the so-called vouchers, Microsoft reps actually call it, they call it royalty payments. So they can carry on selling that as far as they can. They don't have to market, they don't have to advertise that, but they can at least try to make as much money as they can from distribution, which is based a great deal on what Reddit is doing at the kernel level, and X, and the Apache team is working on that as well. But OpenSUSE is more of it eats out of money, and it actually generates new things, but I don't think this company has any interest in doing that. So this is, I think I've spoken enough about that.
Yeah, I was going to say what I can see happening is obviously it's in Microsoft's interest that Linux is seen to be A, not very good, B, run by amateurs, C, insecure. It's in its interest to do all of that. It's also